"Stop digging, Max," Pam whispered, but the German shepherd wouldn't budge. His paws tore into the earth beside the courthouse oak like something buried there still called to him. Moments later, her hands brushed against old wood, rusted metal, and a box filled with a family's forgotten heartbreak. What they found would shatter the illusion of justice and reveal a truth buried for decades. Welcome to Woof Woof Stories. Let's uncover what really happened. On a crisp spring morning, Pam Bondi decided to take her German shepherd, Max, for their usual walk around the courthouse grounds. The sun had just begun to warm the earth, and the courthouse lawn was still quiet, save for the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. Max, a spirited and curious dog, trotted happily beside her, nose close to the grass, sniffing every inch as if searching for something only he could sense. As they neared a patch of soft earth near an old oak tree, Max suddenly stopped and began to dig furiously. His paws churned the soil with determination, dirt flying in every direction. Pam called him back, but Max was relentless, his intense focus unshaken. Intrigued, she stepped closer, brushing dirt away to see what had captured his attention. To her surprise, the ground beneath Max's paws gave way slightly, revealing a glimpse of something unnatural, a piece of weathered fabric, dark and fragile. Her heart quickened as she carefully brushed more dirt away, exposing what looked like the edge of a box or perhaps a shallow container buried beneath the surface. Pam's mind raced. This was no ordinary find. The courthouse lawn had always been a place of respect and order, not the kind of place where things got buried and forgotten. But Max's instincts were rarely wrong, and she knew she had stumbled on something important. She pulled out her phone and called the local authorities. Within minutes, a team of investigators arrived, carefully cordoning off the area as they began to dig more systematically. The crowd started to gather, neighbors, courthouse staff, and passers-by drawn by the unfolding mystery. As the digging continued, the tension grew palpable. What had Max uncovered? Was it a long-lost artifact, or something far more troubling? The calm morning was shattered by the weight of secrets long buried, and Pam found herself at the center of a story that no one expected, one that would change everything for her community. Max wasn't just any dog. Over the years, Pam had come to rely on his sharp senses and unwavering instincts. As a German shepherd, he was naturally alert, but what made Max extraordinary was his uncanny ability to sense things beneath the surface, things people often missed. That morning, as the crowd gathered around the disturbed patch of earth, Max paced anxiously near the edge of the excavation. His eyes darted back and forth, nose twitching as if trying to catch a scent no one else could detect. Despite the growing noise and activity, Max's focus remained unbroken. He seemed driven by something deeper than curiosity, something urgent. Pam knelt beside him, her hand resting gently on his thick fur, trying to calm his restless energy. But Max pulled away, his gaze fixed on a small mound of dirt a few feet from where they'd begun digging. Without hesitation, he bounded over and resumed his digging, frantically clawing at the earth like he was desperate to unearth a hidden truth. The lead investigator, a seasoned detective named Harris, noticed Max's behavior and exchanged a glance with Pam. "That dog's got a nose for more than just squirrels," he murmured. "Let's see if he's onto something." The team shifted their efforts toward the spot Max had indicated. Carefully, they scraped away layers of soil, revealing fragments of what looked like old wood and twisted metal. Max's tail wagged slightly, but his eyes never lost their intense focus. Pam couldn't help but marvel at Max's persistence. Time and again, he had guided her through uncertain situations with that same quiet determination. Today was no different. His instincts were pulling them toward a discovery that was meant to stay buried, but now demanded to be found. As the sun climbed higher, Max's relentless digging led the investigators to uncover more than just forgotten debris. It was as if the dog knew the weight of the story waiting beneath the ground, a story he was determined to bring to light, no matter how long it took. Pam Bondi cherished her quiet morning walks with Max. It was a routine that brought her peace amidst the often chaotic world of public life. The courthouse grounds, with their neatly trimmed grass and towering oaks, had become a sanctuary where she could clear her mind and connect with the simple rhythm of nature. That morning had started like any other. The air was cool and fresh, with the faint scent of blooming magnolias lingering nearby. Pam moved at a steady pace, Max happily trotting beside her, occasionally pausing to sniff at a patch of grass or investigate a stray leaf. It was the kind of calm moment she needed to prepare for the busy day ahead. But something felt different today, though Pam couldn't quite put her finger on it. As they passed the lawn near the courthouse steps, Max suddenly tensed. His ears perked up and his tail stiffened. Normally, he was calm and well-behaved on their walks, but now there was an edge to his movements, a restless energy that made Pam slow down and watch closely. She called his name softly, but Max was already focused on a spot near the base of an ancient oak tree. With a sudden burst of energy, he dropped his front paws and began digging furiously. Pam frowned, mildly annoyed at the disruption to their peaceful stroll. But as she approached, she noticed the ground seemed softer there, almost like it had been disturbed recently. Her curiosity piqued. Pam crouched down and brushed away some loose dirt. Beneath the surface, the glint of something caught her eye, a small fragment of metal, dull with age but unmistakably man-made. The quiet morning suddenly felt charged with an unexpected weight. Max looked up at her, eyes bright and eager, as if urging her to take the moment seriously. Pam realized then that this wasn't just a random patch of earth. Something hidden was calling out to be found, and Max's instinct was guiding her straight into a mystery that would soon ripple far beyond their peaceful courthouse walk. The courthouse lawn had always been a place of order and calm, a well-kept patch of green where officials and visitors alike found a moment of respite. But that morning, something felt undeniably off. The usually pristine grass bore fresh marks of disturbance, patches of upturned earth where no maintenance crew had been scheduled. Passers-by stopped to whisper among themselves, their curious glances drawn toward the small excavation site. Sheriff's deputies arrived quietly, surveying the scene with cautious eyes. Pam Bondi stood nearby, watching Max's restless pacing as he refused to leave the spot he had chosen hours before. Max's behavior grew stranger with every passing minute. His ears twitched at sounds no one else seemed to notice. He circled the area repeatedly, digging at odd intervals and growling low when strangers approached. Even seasoned law enforcement officers exchanged puzzled looks. This wasn't typical canine conduct. As officials set up temporary barriers around the site, rumors began to spread. Some whispered of vandalism, others speculated about a forgotten time capsule, and a few murmured darker theories involving secrets better left buried. The media caught wind quickly, cameras and reporters gathering at the edges of the courthouse lawn, eager for any piece of news that could unravel the mystery. Pam, though unaccustomed to such attention, remained composed. She knew Max well enough to trust his instincts. There was something beneath the surface, something tangible that explained his relentless digging and unease. Detective Harris, called in to oversee the investigation, took note of Max's strange reactions. "Dogs can sense more than we realize," he said to Pam, lowering his voice. "Sometimes they pick up on energies, memories tied to a place. If Max is acting like this, there's a reason." Despite the growing buzz, the truth beneath the disturbed soil remained elusive. Each new layer unearthed only hinted at a deeper story, one that stirred emotions long dormant. The courthouse lawn had transformed from a symbol of justice to a silent witness of a past that refused to stay hidden, and Max's persistent behavior was the first clue that something extraordinary was about to unfold. The crowd watched in tense silence as the lead investigator carefully lifted the first shovelful of dirt from the disturbed patch on the courthouse lawn. The soil was loose and dark, freshly turned, revealing a glimpse of something hard beneath. Pam stood close by, heart pounding, Max at her side still alert and restless. With deliberate precision, the team continued to dig, each scoop uncovering fragments of aged wood and rusted metal. The sun climbed higher, casting sharp shadows over the unearthing site, but the atmosphere grew heavier with every inch of earth removed. What started as a simple curiosity was quickly becoming something far more serious. Pam's breath caught as the edge of a wooden box emerged, its surface cracked and worn from years underground. The smell of damp earth mixed with something faintly metallic and musty. The investigators exchanged glances, their faces reflecting a mix of anticipation and unease. This was no ordinary find. It was a hidden container, deliberately buried and long forgotten. Max circled the box, growling softly but without aggression, as if acknowledging the importance of the moment. Pam reached out instinctively to steady the box as it was lifted from the ground, revealing faded markings and faint inscriptions she couldn't decipher. The weight of the discovery settled on her shoulders like a sudden storm. Detective Harris motioned for the team to step back as the box was carefully carried away for further examination. He turned to Pam, his voice low but firm. "Whatever's inside, it's tied to something significant. This isn't just about the past. It's about the truth someone wanted hidden." The whispers among the onlookers grew louder. Speculation ran wild, but Pam felt a strange mix of dread and hope. Max's persistent digging had led them here for a reason, and whatever secrets the box contained were about to change everything. As the soil settled back into place, the courthouse lawn no longer felt like just a place of law and order. It had become the threshold to a buried story, one waiting to be told, one that would bring tears, revelations, and justice long overdue. The wooden box was carefully transported to a nearby examination tent, where the investigators gathered with cautious anticipation. Pam watched closely, her fingers intertwined tightly as the lid was pried open with delicate tools. The air was thick with tension, every breath held as the box revealed its contents. Inside lay an assortment of aged items, faded photographs, yellowed letters tied with a brittle ribbon, and a small metal case tarnished by time. Pam's eyes fell on a worn diary, its leather cover cracked but still intact. The handwriting inside was elegant, looping, and painstakingly neat, a stark contrast to the dust and decay that surrounded it. As the investigators sifted through the artifacts, an unexpected discovery caught everyone off guard, a collection of personal belongings that didn't match the usual courthouse memorabilia. Among them was a set of children's shoes, scuffed and small, and a delicate locket containing a faded portrait of a young girl. The emotional weight of these items was palpable, stirring a quiet sorrow that rippled through the team. Detective Harris looked up from the papers, his expression grave. This isn't just a time capsule or some forgotten evidence. It's personal, someone's story buried here for decades. Pam felt a lump rise in her throat. The photographs depicted faces she didn't recognize, but their eyes carried a silent plea, frozen in time. The letters spoke of hope, loss, and fear, words penned by hands desperate to be heard long after their authors had vanished. Max sat quietly at her feet, his usually sharp gaze softened as if sensing the gravity of what had been uncovered. The unexpected nature of the find shifted the investigation from simple curiosity to a quest for justice and closure. As word spread, the community braced itself for the truths that would surface, truths hidden beneath the courthouse lawn, locked away by time and secrecy. What began as a dog's persistent digging had unearthed more than objects. It had awakened memories and pain that would soon demand answers and healing for all who were touched by the buried past. The deeper the investigation went, the clearer it became that the buried box was only the surface of a much darker secret. For years, the courthouse lawn had concealed a truth that many had hoped would remain forgotten, an act of desperation, a hidden pain, and a story left untold. The personal artifacts stirred questions no one yet dared to ask aloud. Who had placed these items here? Why bury such intimate pieces in a place so public, yet so untouched? And most haunting of all, what had happened to the people in those photographs and letters? Detective Harris gathered the team to piece together the clues. The diary's entries mentioned names and places linked to decades-old court cases, many involving wrongful accusations and unsolved disappearances. The faint outlines of a tragic history started to emerge, one of injustice, silence, and lives erased from official records. Pam couldn't shake the feeling that this secret was more than just old wounds. It was a cry for justice that had been muffled for far too long. The more they uncovered, the heavier the weight pressed down on the courthouse grounds, as if the earth itself remembered the sorrow buried beneath. As word leaked to local historians and families connected to the past, the courthouse lawn became a site of quiet pilgrimage. People came with questions, with memories, and with tears for the forgotten souls whose stories were finally being unearthed. Max remained vigilant throughout, often pausing and sniffing the air, as if sensing unseen watchers, unseen dangers. Pam's bond with him deepened. His instincts were proving to be not just sharp, but essential in navigating a labyrinth of truth and deception. Behind the courthouse facade, the community faced the realization that beneath the polished surface lay a history that challenged everything they thought they knew. The hidden secret demanded reckoning, and those who had buried it would soon find that some truths refused to stay hidden forever. Recognizing the complexity of what they had uncovered, Detective Harris knew they needed help beyond their usual resources. The artifacts and clues hinted at a story woven through decades, requiring specialists who could piece together the fragments with care and precision. Pam supported the decision wholeheartedly. This was no longer a local mystery. It was a matter that demanded expertise. Within hours, the county called in a team of forensic archaeologists and historians, experts skilled in uncovering and interpreting buried histories. The specialists arrived with careful equipment, setting up scanners and excavation tools designed to preserve fragile evidence without causing further damage. Their presence brought a new layer of professionalism and urgency to the investigation. One archaeologist, Dr. Elena Ruiz, examined the site with a practiced eye. She explained how the disturbed soil and the box's placement suggested it had been deliberately hidden, possibly to protect those involved or to hide a painful truth. These kinds of burials often hold stories that official records fail to capture, she said, her voice measured but empathetic. Meanwhile, historians began cross-referencing the names and dates from the diary and letters with court archives, local records, and newspaper clippings. Slowly, a clearer picture started to emerge, one of wrongful convictions, disappearances, and silenced witnesses. The courthouse, a symbol of justice, now stood at the center of a legacy that was anything but just. Pam watched the experts work with a mixture of awe and resolve. The discovery had become a race against time, not just to uncover the truth, but to honor those who had been erased from history. Max stayed close, his alertness a constant reminder that some parts of this story were still unknown and potentially dangerous. As the days passed, the experts uncovered more buried items, some delicate, some incriminating, each piece a thread in a tapestry of hidden lives and lost justice. What had begun as a dog's instinctive dig was now a collaborative effort to shine light on shadows long cast, and everyone involved felt the weight of responsibility growing heavier with every revelation. As the experts delved deeper into the investigation, the layers of history buried beneath the courthouse lawn began to reveal themselves. Each artifact, each faded photograph, and every brittle letter was a window into a past tangled with hardship, injustice, and heartbreak. The courthouse, once viewed as a steadfast pillar of fairness, had been the silent witness to a series of troubling cases decades earlier. Many of these involved marginalized families whose pleas for justice were ignored or buried in legal red tape. Some disappeared from records altogether, as if erased by the very system meant to protect them. The diary's entries painted a vivid picture of a mother's desperate attempts to shield her children from an unforgiving world. The letters told stories of forced separations, wrongful accusations, and a shadow of fear that hung over those who dared speak out. The children's shoes and the lockets served as haunting reminders of lives cut short or forever changed. Historians pieced together the connections between these stories and a series of court trials that had been closed abruptly, many with unresolved questions and unanswered appeals. The courthouse lawn, where the community now stood, had once been the final resting place of hopes and secrets too painful to bear openly. Pam felt the weight of these revelations settling over her like a storm. This was more than a story of hidden artifacts. It was a reckoning with a history that had been carefully hidden beneath layers of silence and soil. The land itself seemed to hold the memories of those who suffered in silence, demanding their voices be heard at last. Max, ever vigilant, sensed the change too. His restless energy mirrored the urgency growing within the team to uncover the full truth. Each discovery was a step closer to healing wounds long ignored. The community watched and waited, caught between grief and hope. The history buried in the soil was no longer just the past. It was a call to justice, a reminder that some stories, no matter how deeply buried, will always find a way to rise again. As twilight settled over the courthouse grounds, a hushed stillness replaced the earlier buzz of activity. The uncovered artifacts and stories stirred a quiet but persistent murmur among those who had come to witness the unfolding mystery. It was as if the very air carried whispers from the past, faint voices reaching across time, begging to be heard. Late into the evening, Pam sat with a small group of local historians and family members who had come forward, drawn by the fragments of history now exposed. They shared memories passed down through generations, stories of hardship, resilience, and loss that had never made it into official records. These personal recollections added depth and humanity to the cold facts found in the buried box. One elderly woman, her eyes glistening with tears, recounted her grandmother's tale of a young child who vanished after being caught in a bitter custody battle. Another spoke softly of neighbors who had whispered about injustices they feared to name aloud. The courtroom's austere walls had often silenced these voices, but now, the courthouse lawn had become a sacred place for their stories to surface. Max lay quietly at Pam's feet, his presence comforting as the stories unfolded. He seemed attuned to the weight of the memories surrounding them, a living bridge between the present and the past. Detective Harris joined the group, listening intently as the collective history wove itself together. He understood that justice was no longer just a matter of law, but also of acknowledgement, of recognizing the pain and truth long hidden beneath layers of time and secrecy. As the night deepened, the whispers from the past grew stronger, not as ghosts, but as reminders that every story, no matter how buried, carries the power to heal and transform. Pam felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was more than an investigation. It was a journey to give voice to those who had been silenced and to ensure their legacy would never again be forgotten. Among the scattered letters and faded photographs, one thread connected the disparate pieces, a forgotten tragedy that had quietly haunted the town for decades. As historians and investigators dug deeper, it became clear that the buried box held the key to a sorrowful chapter many had tried to leave behind. The tragedy centered around a family torn apart by a series of wrongful accusations and bitter legal battles. The diary revealed the mother's desperate struggle to protect her children from a system that seemed rigged against them. Despite her efforts, the family had been broken, with one child mysteriously disappearing and the others scattered across foster homes and distant relatives. Old court records, once dismissed as routine, now took on new weight. Several cases had been closed abruptly, leaving unanswered questions and unresolved grief. Local residents remembered hushed conversations about strange occurrences near the courthouse, late-night visits, whispered threats, and the occasional disappearance of key witnesses. These stories, long buried in silence, began to surface as the community confronted its past. Pam felt the weight of these revelations pressing on her. The courthouse lawn, once a symbol of justice, had been the backdrop to a human tragedy no one had dared fully acknowledge. The personal items uncovered, the children's shoes, the locket, the letters, were stark reminders of lives irrevocably changed. Max, alert as ever, seemed to sense the gravity too. His gentle nudge against Pam's hand was a quiet reassurance amid the growing storm of emotions. The dog's instincts had led them to this hidden truth, one that demanded not only investigation but compassion. The forgotten tragedy was no longer lost to time. It had returned with a voice strong enough to shake the foundations of the community. As the town grappled with the pain and the secrets buried beneath the courthouse lawn, a path toward healing and justice began to emerge, one that required courage, honesty, and the willingness to face the shadows of the past head-on. News of the discovery spread rapidly, rippling through the community like a sudden storm. The buried secrets beneath the courthouse lawn ignited shock and disbelief among residents, many of whom had long regarded their town as a place of safety and fairness. Now, that image was fracturing under the weight of what had been uncovered. At local gatherings, whispers turned to hushed conversations. Old wounds reopened as families wrestled with the reality that their history included pain, injustice, and silenced voices. Some felt betrayed by the institutions they had trusted for generations. Others were overwhelmed by sorrow for those whose stories had been buried for so long. Pam found herself at the center of a whirlwind. People approached her with tears, questions, and stories of their own. Recollections passed down, fragments of memories once thought insignificant. The courthouse lawn had become more than just a site of investigation. It was a symbol of reckoning. Local officials held emergency meetings to address the growing unrest. Some urged caution, fearing the damage to the town's reputation, while others demanded transparency and swift action to right past wrongs. The media descended, capturing every moment of the community's struggle, turning a private pain into a public spectacle. Amid the turmoil, acts of solidarity began to emerge. Neighbors organized vigils to honor the forgotten souls, and local churches opened their doors for gatherings of remembrance and support. The shared shock was transforming into a collective resolve to confront the past honestly. Max remained a steady presence through it all, a quiet reminder of the dog's instinct that had uncovered the truth. Pam leaned on him more than ever, finding strength in his calm and unwavering loyalty. The community's shock was only the beginning. Beneath the surface of grief and disbelief lay a fragile hope that by facing the darkness together, the town could begin to heal, rebuild trust, and ensure that the voices once silenced would never be forgotten again. Pam Bondi felt the weight of the community's pain pressing heavily on her shoulders, but only strengthened her resolve. This was no longer just a matter of discovery, it was a call to action. The buried secrets beneath the courthouse lawn demanded more than quiet reflection. They demanded truth, justice, and healing. From the moment Max had uncovered that patch of disturbed earth, Pam had known this was bigger than herself. Now, with the town grappling with shock and sorrow, she vowed to lead the charge to uncover every last detail. No stone would be left unturned, no voice ignored. She poured herself into the investigation, working closely with the detectives, historians, and forensic experts. Pam combed through old court records, talked to families affected by the past injustices, and reached out to legal advocates willing to fight for reopening long-forgotten cases. Every conversation deepened her understanding of the lives altered and the truth buried beneath decades of silence. Max stayed by her side through it all, his unwavering loyalty a steady comfort amid the storm. Pam often found herself drawing strength from his presence, reminding her that persistence, like a dog's instinct, could lead to breakthroughs when hope seemed scarce. Despite the emotional toll, Pam refused to let despair take hold. She held community meetings, urging residents to come forward with any memories or information that might help. She championed transparency and accountability, insisting that the past be acknowledged openly to pave the way for a better future. Her determination sparked a shift in the town's mood. People who had once felt powerless began to see that change was possible. Pam's leadership inspired courage and unity, turning grief into action. The path ahead was daunting, filled with painful truths and difficult conversations. But Pam knew that uncovering the full story was the only way to honor those whose lives have been overshadowed by silence. With Max by her side and the community behind her, she was ready to face whatever lay beneath the surface and to bring the truth into the light. With mounting evidence and growing public pressure, the county officially launched a full-scale investigation into the buried secrets beneath the courthouse lawn. The announcement sent ripples through the community. What had begun as a curious discovery was now a serious inquiry with the potential to reshape the town's history. A special investigative task force was assembled, bringing together seasoned detectives, forensic specialists, and legal experts. Their mission was clear: to uncover the truth, identify those responsible for past injustices, and seek justice for the families affected. The courthouse itself became a hub of activity, its solemn halls now echoing with the urgency of unfinished business. Pam Bondi played a pivotal role, working alongside the task force to provide insights and connect with those impacted by the unfolding revelations. Her presence reassured families that their stories would be heard and that the investigation was more than just a formality. It was a commitment to accountability. The team began systematically reviewing decades-old case files, many previously dismissed or overlooked. They cross-referenced the personal items found buried with records of missing persons, wrongful convictions, and unsolved cases. Forensic experts re-examined evidence with modern technology, hoping to uncover details that had been missed the first time. Max's discovery had opened a floodgate. Witnesses who had once feared speaking out began coming forward, emboldened by the official inquiry. Their testimonies added new layers to the investigation, revealing patterns of neglect and cover-ups that had allowed injustice to persist. As the task force dug deeper, tensions grew. Some officials resisted the probe, wary of what might surface. But Pam's steadfast dedication and the growing public demand for transparency pushed the investigation forward. The official inquiry marked a turning point. What was once hidden beneath layers of soil and silence was now at the forefront, demanding answers. The community watched closely, hopeful that this painstaking process would finally bring justice to those long forgotten and restore faith in the very courthouse lawn where the truth had begun to emerge. The investigation revealed more than anyone had anticipated. Each new document, every witness statement, and every piece of physical evidence added to a dark, complex puzzle, one that spanned decades and implicated individuals once trusted to uphold justice. Pam sat in the conference room with Detective Harris and the task force, studying timelines and case files projected onto the screen. Patterns emerged, cases abruptly closed, crucial evidence overlooked or destroyed, and testimony silenced through intimidation or threats. The courthouse lawn, once a symbol of fairness, was now linked to a legacy of corruption and betrayal. One particularly haunting file detailed the disappearance of a young girl whose belongings matched some of the items found in the buried box. Her case had been dismissed without thorough investigation, a decision that weighed heavily on the community now. Families who had lost loved ones saw their grief echoed in these uncovered records. Pam's resolve hardened as she absorbed the gravity of the revelations. This was more than an isolated tragedy. It was a systemic failure that demanded reckoning. The pieces of the puzzle fit together to form a picture of lives shattered by injustice and silence. Max rested quietly nearby, his calm presence a reminder that the truth, though painful, was essential. Pam thought about the dog's instincts that had set everything in motion, leading them to a buried past no one had dared face. The task force continued their relentless work, interviewing those connected to the cases, searching for hidden documents, and unearthing evidence previously thought lost. Each breakthrough brought new hope, but also deeper sorrow. As the community grappled with the emerging truth, Pam knew this dark puzzle was just the beginning. The full story would require courage from everyone involved, a willingness to confront painful memories and demand accountability. But with every piece uncovered, the promise of justice grew clearer. The courthouse lawn had become more than a resting place for secrets. It was now the foundation for truth, healing, and change. After days of careful forensic work, the remains unearthed beneath the courthouse lawn were finally identified. The news brought a mixture of relief and sorrow to everyone involved, a long-awaited name to match the silent story buried in the earth. Using modern DNA analysis, experts confirmed that the remains belonged to a young girl who had gone missing decades earlier. Her disappearance had haunted the community, but was overshadowed by time and unanswered questions. Now, with this confirmation, her story was finally given the dignity of recognition. Pam stood quietly as the lead forensic anthropologist explained the findings. The girl had been no older than 7, her life cut tragically short under circumstances that were still shrouded in mystery. Small details emerged from the examination, signs of trauma, evidence of attempts to conceal her presence, that hinted at the painful truth the community had long feared. Families connected to the case gathered, their faces a mix of grief and gratitude. For some, the identification was a step toward closure after years of uncertainty. For others, it reopened wounds too raw to bear. Pam felt the heavy weight of their emotions, knowing that naming the remains was only the beginning of a much longer journey toward justice. Max, ever loyal, sat beside her, sensing the gravity of the moment. The dog's instincts had guided them here, to a truth that no one could deny. Detective Harris pledged that the investigation would continue relentlessly, focusing now on uncovering who was responsible and how such a tragedy could have been allowed to fade into silence. Pam joined him in promising the community that the courthouse lawn would no longer be a resting place for secrets. The identity of the remains was more than a forensic victory. It was a beacon of hope. It told the town that no one would be forgotten, that every life mattered, and that even buried truths could be brought into the light. As the sun set over the courthouse grounds, a quiet resolve settled over the community. The journey toward healing had begun, anchored by the name finally spoken aloud and the promise that justice would follow. The identification of a young girl beneath the courthouse lawn unleashed a flood of emotions across the community. Tears flowed freely at vigils held in her memory, and old photographs were pulled from dusty albums, bringing back faces and stories long tucked away. Memories once buried alongside the soil now resurfaced with aching clarity. Families who had once whispered about disappearances now spoke openly, sharing grief and hopes for justice. The girl's name, spoken aloud for the first time in decades, became a symbol of resilience and remembrance. In homes, churches, and community centers, conversations shifted from silence to healing as people embraced the pain that came with truth. Pam found herself at the heart of these gatherings, offering comfort and strength even as her own eyes welled with tears. She listened to stories of love, loss, and survival, testimonies that gave life to the past and fueled the urgency to seek answers. Max remained close, his steady presence a quiet reminder of how one small instinct had unearthed so much. Old friends reconnected, recalling moments frozen in time, while new alliances formed around the shared goal of honoring those forgotten. The courthouse lawn, once just a patch of grass, had transformed into a sacred space of memory and tribute. Detective Harris noted how the community's pain had sparked a collective determination. "It's the memories that keep the truth alive," he said softly. "And the tears remind us why justice matters." As the days passed, the emotional weight grew, but so did the resolve. The resurfacing memories were a powerful force, reminding everyone that behind every case file was a human life, a story worth fighting for. Pam understood that healing would be neither quick nor easy, but she believed in the strength of the community to face the past together. The tears and memories were painful, yes, but they were also the first steps toward reclaiming a history that had been stolen, and toward building a future where such tragedies would never be forgotten again. The deeper the investigation penetrated, the more tangled the web of deceit became. What initially seemed like isolated failures soon revealed a systematic pattern of cover-ups and manipulation that stretched through decades. Layers of corruption, hidden agendas, and silenced voices emerged from the shadows, shaking the very foundations of the town's justice system. Pam and Detective Harris uncovered records indicating that key evidence had been deliberately destroyed or altered in several cases linked to the buried remains. Witnesses had been intimidated or coerced into silence, while officials entrusted to protect the vulnerable had instead turned a blind eye, or worse, participated in the concealment. Names of influential community members surfaced, some of whom had long since retired or moved away, their legacies now stained by these revelations. The courthouse, once revered, was now seen as a stage for betrayal and injustice, where truth was often sacrificed to protect reputations and power. Pam wrestled with the magnitude of the betrayal. The same institution meant to safeguard the innocent had been complicit in burying their pain, both literally and figuratively. The personal artifacts buried beneath the lawn were a stark testament to the lives lost to this conspiracy. Max's persistent digging had unmasked a darkness that many had tried to forget or ignore. The dog's instincts had pierced through decades of deception, leading the town to confront truths it wasn't prepared to face. As the task force pieced together the network of lies, more survivors and relatives came forward, their courage fueled by the growing momentum of the investigation. Their testimonies added fuel to the fire, revealing new suspects and motives. Despite resistance from some quarters, the tide was turning. The community demanded accountability and transparency, refusing to let the web of deceit remain intact any longer. Pam understood that exposing this tangled betrayal was painful but necessary. Only by shining a relentless light on the darkness could the town begin to heal and rebuild trust, one truth at a time. The weight of decades-long silence finally began to lift as the investigation moved from uncovering truth to demanding justice. For too long, families and victims have been denied closure, their pain dismissed or ignored. Now, the community stood united in its insistence that those responsible be held accountable and that the memory of the lost be honored. Pam felt a profound sense of purpose as she worked alongside prosecutors and advocates determined to bring long-overdue legal action. Reopening cold cases, filing new charges, and pushing for hearings became a relentless pursuit. The courthouse, once a symbol of betrayal, was transforming into a place where justice could be reclaimed. Survivors and relatives, empowered by the investigation, bravely stepped forward to testify. Their voices, once silenced by fear or despair, echoed in courtrooms and public forums, demanding recognition and redress. Pam attended hearings, offering support and reminding everyone that the fight was about more than punishment. It was about healing. Max remained a quiet companion through the grueling process, his steady presence a reminder of how one dog's instinct had sparked a movement. Each conviction and official acknowledgement felt like a victory not only for the victims but for the soul of the community itself. Resistance and setbacks surfaced. Some officials sought to downplay the findings, and some accused the investigation of reopening old wounds unnecessarily. But the public's demand for truth and justice was stronger than ever, pushing the process forward with renewed vigor. Pam knew that justice was not a simple destination, but a journey, one that required patience, courage, and unwavering commitment. The path ahead was still long, but every step marked progress. As courtrooms filled and verdicts were announced, the town began to breathe more freely. The past, once hidden beneath layers of dirt and deceit, was now faced openly. Justice, though long overdue, was finally arriving, and with it came the promise of healing, hope, and a future where such tragedies would never be forgotten or repeated. Pam Bondi's unwavering courage became a beacon of hope in a town grappling with its painful past. Her determination to uncover the truth and seek justice inspired many to step forward, share their stories, and join the collective effort to heal and rebuild. In community meetings, Pam spoke openly about the importance of facing uncomfortable truths and confronting injustice head-on. Her honesty and compassion resonated deeply, encouraging others to move beyond fear and silence. People who had long suffered in isolation found strength in her example, realizing they were not alone. Local activists began organizing support groups and advocacy campaigns, fueled by Pam's leadership. Her tireless work showed that one person's voice could ignite change, and that standing up for what was right could shift the course of an entire community. Max, ever faithful, remained by her side, a symbol of instinct, loyalty, and the power of persistence. Teachers incorporated the history uncovered beneath the courthouse lawn into their lessons, ensuring younger generations learned not only about the town's triumphs, but also its mistakes. Pam helped establish scholarships and memorials honoring the victims, transforming grief into action and remembrance. Her courage also challenged local authorities to reevaluate policies and practices, leading to reforms aimed at preventing future injustices. The ripple effects of her determination reached far beyond the courthouse grounds, sparking a cultural shift toward transparency and accountability. While the journey was far from over, Pam's example gave the community hope that healing was possible. She showed that confronting the past with bravery could lay the foundation for a more just and compassionate future. In moments of quiet reflection, Pam often thought of Max, the dog whose instinct had set everything in motion. Their journey together was a testament to the power of persistence, courage, and heart. Through her leadership, Pam Bondi proved that even in the darkest times, one person's courage could inspire a community to rise, remember, and rebuild stronger than ever before. The trial that followed the investigation gripped the entire town, bringing decades of pain, secrets, and anger into a tense courtroom drama that no one could ignore. It was more than just a legal proceeding. It was a reckoning, a moment when the community faced its darkest truths head-on. Pam sat among the crowd in the packed courtroom, the weight of the moment pressing heavily on her. Families of victims, survivors, and townspeople filled the seats, their faces a mixture of hope, fear, and determination. The accused, once pillars of the community, now faced charges that exposed a legacy of betrayal and cover-up. The prosecution laid out a compelling case, weaving together evidence from forensic reports, witness testimonies, and the buried artifacts that had sparked the investigation. Each revelation sent ripples through the courtroom, challenging long-held beliefs and forcing jurors to confront uncomfortable realities. Emotional testimonies brought the past to life, the voices of those silenced for years finally heard. Tears flowed as survivors recounted their experiences, and families spoke of the pain of loss and the desperate search for justice. Outside the courthouse, a crowd gathered, hanging on every word, united in their demand for accountability. The trial became a symbol of the community's commitment to truth, no matter how painful. The defense fought fiercely, attempting to discredit evidence and sow doubt, but the mounting weight of facts and testimonies was undeniable. For many, the trial was not just about punishment. It was about restoring faith in a system that had failed them. Pam watched as justice unfolded, not perfectly, but with purpose and resolve. The verdict, when it came, echoed through the town like a thunderclap, marking a turning point in the community's journey toward healing. The trial that shook the town was a painful but necessary chapter, a reminder that confronting the past, no matter how difficult, is the first step toward a future where truth and justice prevail. As the gavel fell, the community knew that their story had been heard and that a new chapter had begun. In the weeks following the trial, the town began the slow and difficult process of healing. The courtroom drama had exposed painful wounds, but had also opened the door to reconciliation and hope. For many, the journey toward healing was deeply personal, intertwined with grief, forgiveness, and the determination to rebuild. Pam found herself at the center of community efforts to provide support and comfort. She organized gatherings where families could share their stories without judgment, creating spaces where pain was acknowledged and empathy flourished. These meetings became sanctuaries for those who had suffered in silence, offering connection and understanding. Local leaders worked to implement changes inspired by the investigation's findings, reforming policies to ensure transparency and protect the vulnerable. Schools incorporated lessons about the town's history, not to dwell on tragedy, but to teach resilience, accountability, and the importance of justice. Memorials were erected on the courthouse lawn, honoring the lives lost and reminding everyone of the cost of silence. The community came together to plant trees, share stories, and vow that the past would never be forgotten nor repeated. Max remained a comforting presence throughout, his gentle nature a reminder of the instinct that had sparked change. Pam often reflected on the journey from that first discovery to this moment, grateful for the courage it took to face the past. Healing was not linear. There were setbacks and moments of sorrow, but the collective strength of the town carried it forward. Each act of kindness, each honest conversation, helped to mend the fabric of a community once torn by secrecy and pain. As the seasons changed, so too did the spirit of the town. What had once been a place shadowed by hidden grief now shone with the light of remembrance and renewal. The wounds of the past, though still tender, were beginning to close, healed not by forgetting, but by embracing truth and fostering hope for a better tomorrow. The courthouse lawn, once a silent witness to buried secrets, transformed into a place of remembrance and honor. The community gathered regularly to remember those lost, lives that had been overshadowed by silence and injustice, but now reclaimed through memory and respect. Pam helped organize memorial services where families, friends, and neighbors came together to share stories, light candles, and lay flowers. Each gathering was a powerful reminder that the individuals beneath the soil were more than names or forgotten cases. They were beloved members of the community, deserving dignity and love. Photographs and mementos were displayed, capturing moments of joy, innocence, and hope. Voices that had once been muffled now echoed through the stories shared by those who remembered. Tears flowed freely, mingling with laughter as memories breathed life into the past. Local artists and students contributed through murals, poems, and performances, giving creative expression to the collective grief and healing. The courthouse lawn became a canvas for remembrance, a living tribute that connected generations. Pam often stood quietly among the crowd, feeling the presence of those lost and the strength of those who remained. Max lay nearby, sensing the solemnity and peace that now filled the space. The act of remembering became a vital part of the town's healing, a way to honor not only the past, but also the resilience of the human spirit. It was a promise that the lives lost would never be forgotten and that their stories would continue to inspire justice and compassion. Through remembrance, the community found unity, drawing strength from shared history and collective hope. The courthouse lawn no longer bore only the weight of sorrow, but also the light of memory, a testament to the enduring power of love, truth, and the vow to never let history repeat itself. The story uncovered beneath the courthouse lawn left an indelible mark on the town, one that shaped its future with a legacy rooted in truth and compassion. What had begun as a dog's instinctive digging evolved into a profound journey of reckoning, healing, and renewal. Pam Bondi stood at the forefront of this transformation, her leadership embodying the town's commitment to face its past honestly and move forward with empathy. Through her tireless efforts, the community learned that truth is not just a matter of facts and evidence, but also of human connection and understanding. Programs were established to support victims of injustice and their families, offering counseling, legal aid, and community resources. Educational initiatives ensured that future generations would learn from the past, fostering a culture where transparency and accountability were valued above silence and denial. The courthouse lawn, once a place of buried secrets, had become a symbol of hope. Memorials and gardens honored those who had suffered, while public forums encouraged ongoing dialogue about justice, equity, and compassion. The town's collective experience became a blueprint for other communities facing similar struggles. Max, the loyal German shepherd whose persistence sparked the entire movement, was celebrated as a quiet hero, a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts can uncover the greatest truths. Pam often reflected on the journey, grateful for the resilience of the people around her. They had faced painful truths and chosen to respond not with bitterness, but with courage and kindness. Together, they forged a legacy that would outlast them all, a legacy where the past was honored, the present embraced, and a future shaped by lessons learned. In the end, the town was not defined by its darkest moments, but by its ability to rise above them. Through truth and compassion, they reclaimed their story, ensuring that justice and healing would endure for generations to come.